How do you feel about flying? Are you the kind of passenger who breezes through the airport without a care and snoozes for the entire flight? Or are you more likely to bite your nails down to the stubs as you allow your brain to dream up all kinds of nightmare situations? After seeing this for the first time, we might all be the latter. Did anyone else just jump out of their seat? If you think your heart can take it, you should totally stick around to find out more about this insane turbulence, plus a bunch more things you'll see for the first time in your life. Which animal would you say has the most impressive ears? Elephant ears have known to be the biggest in the world. After all, they can grow up to 6 feet long. Bats are known for their insane echolocation skills. But what about this little kitty cat? Okay, so this isn't exactly the kind of moggy you'd spot in your own neighborhood. The caracal is a wild cat which is native to Africa, the Middle East, Central Asia, and India. Caracals are not as large as some of the other well-known big cats like lions or tigers, but they can still weigh between 18 to 42 pounds. So it's safe to say they can be described as medium-sized moggies. As you'll notice, one of the caracal's most distinctive features is their long black ear tufts or tassels. There are a few different theories about the practical function of these adorably bizarre tufts. Some suggest they may help to keep flies out of the cat's face, which might explain all the flicking that's going on here, while others think they might act as camouflage by breaking up the outline of the cat's head in the tall grass. But the most widely accepted theory is that the cat twitches its ear tufts as a way to communicate with fellow caracals. Whatever their use, it's fascinating to watch the incredible features in action. Can you imagine if our ears had that much movement? These extraordinary ears each have over 20 muscles that allows them to swivel around like satellite dishes to detect the sounds of their prey. With hearing instruments like that, one thing's for sure, you'll have no luck sneaking past a caracal. Now, I'm certainly no caracal, but my spidey senses are pretty finely tuned when it comes to telling who's a loyal Be Amazed fan and who isn't. So before we go any further, make sure to smash those like and subscribe buttons and turn on notifications so you never miss out on any more amazing content. All done? Nice! Let's get back to it. We've all been guilty of busting a few moves on the dance floor to try and impress a potential partner. If you're prone to making a total fool of yourself for some romantic attention, you should totally take some tips from the peacock jumping spider. This little guy dances the rumba better than any contestant I've ever seen on Strictly Come Dancing. Male peacock spiders, which are native to Australia, perform a colorful song and dance to win the ladies over, which is pretty unrivaled in the rest of the animal kingdom. Peacock spiders' recently discovered courtship displays are among the gaudiest and most complex ever discovered, a fact made even more impressive by their tiny size. When a male peacock spider thinks he has spotted a potential mating partner, he begins a series of dance moves that send literal good vibrations through the ground toward the female. Scientists have even dubbed a couple of the dance moves the Rumble Rump and Grind Rev. Remind me to note those down for my next night in the town. Still, the courtship dance doesn't guarantee a 100% success rate. According to Michael Kasumovic from Australia's University of New South Wales, if females don't like a male, they'll eat them. Maybe I'll stick to cheesy pickup lines for now. The field of medicine is advancing so quickly that it's hard to keep up with all the new technologies that are available. Ever wondered how doctors and nurses know exactly where the right veins are by looking at your skin alone? Well, thanks to this piece of creative tech, it's never been easier. This vein visualization technology is also known as vein mapping, thanks to the way it creates a real-time visual map of the veins on the surface of the skin. The technology uses near-infrared light, which is absorbed by the blood but reflected by the surrounding tissue, to locate veins up to 15 millimeters deep and then projects the results back onto the skin. The hemoglobin in the blood, which transfers oxygen in your blood from the lungs to the tissues, absorbs the infrared light, so there is a reduced amount of light reflection from the veins. Then, a custom detection system uses this change in reflection to determine vein location and pattern, which it digitally projects on the surface of the skin. Finally, a specialized laser detection system makes the vein mapping visible to the clinician. This incredible technology is super helpful for healthcare professionals because it allows them to find the best veins quickly and accurately for IV starts and blood draws. Before this invention, it was more of a pin the tail on the donkey kind of situation. Just kidding. Speaking of incredible technologies, take a look at this video and give me your best guess about when it was filmed. The first clue is that it's in color, which means it can't have been any earlier than 1902, when the world's earliest color film was shot, right? Judging by the clothes the people are wearing, it makes sense that it could have been shot during the early 1900s. But the picture quality seems far too crisp to be that old. Give up guessing? This footage was actually recorded way back in 1896. The reason it looks so great is because it's been restored using groundbreaking AI technology like gigapixel AI. The original film was shot at 16 frames per second, rather than the modern-day 60 frame per second standard. So the AI's first job is to look at the original frames and fill in the data in between, creating a more naturalistic effect. This means that the people in the film move around like they do in real life, rather than appearing jumpy or static, creating the impression that it could have been filmed yesterday. This particular clip is part of a collection of short films by the Lumiere brothers titled Kids. Back in the day, the Lumieres were a pretty big deal. These pioneering filmmakers shot films between 1895 and 1905 and paved the way for cinema today. You'd probably recognize their iconic 50-second short, The Arrival of a Train at La Ciotat, which is sometimes credited as one of the earliest films made. Well, guess what? That's been restored too, and it looks uber smooth now. Let's take a breather for a sec so I can ask you guys to share some of your own amazing ideas with me. If you know of anything weird, wonderful, or downright amazing you think needs to be shared with the world, why not get in touch at clips@beamazed.com. Just send in any incredible footage or images you find online and you'll get yourself a shout out if it gets included in a future video. Now, where were we? Most people will say that magic doesn't exist in the real world. But if that's really the case, then how do you explain this? Whoa, what in tarnation just happened? I could have sworn that water was frozen solid until he reached out and put his hand through it. Allow me to explain. What you're seeing here is actually known as laminar flow. Not frozen, not witchcraft, just good old-fashioned fluid dynamics. Laminar flow, sometimes called a streamline flow, is a type of fluid flow in which the fluid travels smoothly or in regular paths, in contrast to the much more common turbulent flow in which the fluid undergoes irregular fluctuations and mixing. You see, in laminar flow, the velocity, pressure, and other flow properties at each point in the fluid remain at a perfect constant. Laminar flow, in the shape of a straight pipe, like the one in these clips, can be thought of as the relative motion of a set of concentric cylinders of fluid. The outer cylinder, at the wall of the pipe, remains fixed, while the others move at increasing speeds as the center of the pipe is approached. Smoke rising from the end of a cigarette is also undergoing laminar flow. But after rising a small distance, it swirls and breaks from its regular path and changes to turbulent flow. Who said science wasn't cool? Can you guess how many people are afraid of flying? Of course, I don't mean spreading your wings and taking to the skies. I'm talking about hopping in a plane, something which is second nature to some and totally terrifying to others. Some estimates suggest that aviophobia actually affects 2.5 to 6.5 of the world's population. That's a lot of people. If you happen to be one of those frightened souls, you should probably look away now. This terrifying event took place on an ALK Airlines flight flying from Kosovo in southeastern Europe to Switzerland on the 16th of June 2019. Apparently, the seatbelt sign had been switched on as the plane entered a period of extreme turbulence. But just moments later, a flight attendant is thrown into the air and hits the roof, sending sachets of milk, sugar, and drinks flying across the cabin. The man sitting closest to the camera even appears to hit the seat in front. The heart-stopping footage was filmed by passenger Murjada Basha, who said the turbulence began around 30 minutes after takeoff and lasted for at least 5 minutes. By the time it was over, seats were reportedly torn up and passengers were left beaten and bruised. Thankfully, emergency services were on hand when the plane touched down at the airport in Bal, and no one was seriously harmed. Although turbulence like this is undeniably terrifying to experience, as well as being the most common cause of injury on aircraft, it is not considered a major safety risk. Planes are designed to withstand wind pressures they would never naturally encounter, and the chances of wings being damaged in turbulence are very minimal. So that explains why pilots and their crews are always so calm, even when it might seem like game over. Let's just hope no one was in the bathroom the moment that wicked turbulence hit, because that would be quite the cleanup job. Ever seen a naked tarantula butt before? Yup, you heard me right. Just take a look for yourself. But what caused the behind of this beastly arachnid to end up looking like a ripe lychee fruit? In case you didn't know, tarantulas are known to shed their itchy butt hair when they get stressed out, and sometimes they go a little overboard. And for the Brazilian white-kneed tarantula, baldness starts with the butt. Some species use these bristly hairs, called urticating hairs, as a defense mechanism. If a predator attempts to attack the spider, these hairs can be rubbed off or flicked in their direction, which can cause some major irritation if they happen to land on the eyes or mucous membranes. On the 6th of August 2020, entomologist Gwen Pearson tweeted a photo of what looks like a tarantula with a shaved butt at the Purdue Insect Zoo at Purdue University in Indiana. It might seem like the hair loss happened with age, but the specimen, which was rescued from a black market pet importer, is less than 2 years old. Its bare badonkadonk is actually just evidence of the tarantula's natural defense mechanism at work under immense stress. Can you imagine if humans did the same thing when we got stressed? Whether it's baking or woodworking, it seems like some people were just born with incredibly gifted hands. But have you ever seen a craft like this before? This mesmerizing optical glass sculpture was created by LA-based artist Jack Storms, who is one of a select few sculptors in the world to still work with cold glass. Most of the glass art you encounter nowadays is created by manipulating hot glass through techniques like blowing or flaming. Storms, on the other hand, doesn't use any heat at all. Instead, he uses intensive grinding and polishing techniques that require more time and heaps more patience to transform these solid glass blocks into eye-popping works of art. In fact, each piece takes between 8 to 18 weeks to perfect. But how does he get that colorful core inside? In reality, that part is created first, and it all relies on something called a refractive index. What you see inside is lead crystal, and light passes differently through this than it does with the optic crystals Storms uses to surround it. The color is created by inserting wafer-thin sheets of dichroic crystal in between the layers, which reflects a huge array of colors. Both the lead and optic crystal have the same refractive index, meaning light passes through them without much acknowledgement to the eye. But when it comes to the inner lead and dichroic core, the eye picks up on a fine line of demarcation, which allows you to see pieces of glass within glass, as if it's suspended entirely. Pretty neat, huh? Whales are some of the biggest creatures on the planet, but that certainly doesn't make them any less mysterious. Just check this incredible drone footage out and try to figure out exactly what's going on here. This enormous whale was spotted by a commercial fisherman breaching the surface near Ketchikan, Alaska. But what's the deal with the circular pattern surrounding it? This is actually known as a bubble net, and it has a pretty clever use as an elaborate hunting technique. Take a look at this rare footage of a humpback whale putting it into practice near Baranof Island in Alaska. As it swims in a large, sweeping circle, the whale produces a string of bubbles that rise to the surface in a swirling pattern. It's not all for show, though. This whale is actually preparing himself for a snack. But how is it possible to catch food with nothing but bubbles? Generally, working together in a group, the whales swim in a shrinking circle and blow bubbles from their blowholes below a school of krill to force them to the surface. Sometimes, the whales at the ocean's surface will also splash a flipper to strengthen weakening parts of a disintegrating bubble net. With nowhere left to turn, the krill are toast, which I'm sure is how the whales would love to have them served up. It might surprise you to learn that humpback whales are migratory and only eat during half the year, while they spend the cooler months in their breeding grounds where they don't eat at all. Let's just be glad influencers haven't decided to try out the humpback diet plan yet. Did you know that hummingbirds are the smallest migrating bird in the world? These heroic little birds don't migrate in flocks like other species and typically travel alone for up to 500 miles at a time. To get a real impression of just how small these beauties are, check out this mother hummingbird feeding her teensy-weensy babies. Depending on the species, their habitat, and the weather, female hummingbirds will have between 1 and 3 broods each year. The average number of eggs in a brood is only 2 at a time, and each is no larger than a coffee bean. When the chicks hatch, they're only about an inch long and weigh about 0.62 grams. For some perspective, think of a jelly bean that weighs about 1/3 the weight of a US dime. But within just a few short weeks, these itsy-bitsy babies will grow into one of nature's most fascinating and beloved birds. Their nests are so small and well camouflaged that you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who has been up close and personal with a mother hummingbird and her babies. I guess this guy just got super lucky. The ocean is a magnificent place, and it isn't just the creatures that swim beneath the waves that have the potential to make our jaws hit the floor. Check out these insane underwater bubble rings connecting and breaking apart like they're alive. But what is this bizarre phenomenon all about? Well, a bubble ring, otherwise known as a toroidal bubble, is an underwater donut-shaped vortex ring which is formed when fluid flows back on itself, making a spinning ring around an invisible core. The bubble ring appears to spin much like how a bracelet might spin when it's rolled onto a person's arm. The best-known example of a toroidal ring in nature on land are smoke rings, like the ones produced by volcanoes or artillery. But the most intriguing are those produced by marine creatures like whales and dolphins. These sea mammals generate vortex rings by flicking the tips of their dorsal fin or quickly moving their head. This causes the rapid acceleration of a small mass of water. Drag at the outer edges of the fast-flowing pocket of water slows the flow relative to the center, causing the edges to wrap back on themselves, which results in the donut-shaped vortex of rotating fluid. And the coolest part is, you can create bubble rings yourself by firmly smacking an old soda bottle. There are some pretty incredible sights in the world hiding right under our noses, like these trippy swirling galaxies. It might look like someone has captured the outer reaches of the solar system in a can, but what you're looking at here is just plain old paint. Unstirred paint, that is. That's right, there's a reason you're given a stirrer every time you buy a can of paint. Paint is actually a term used to describe a number of substances that contain a pigment suspended in a liquid or paste vehicle such as oil or water. A single can of paint is composed of pigments, solvents, resins, and various additives. It's the pigments that give the paint its color, while solvents make it easier to apply. Resins help it dry, and additives serve as everything from fillers to anti-fungicidal agents. The thing is, all these ingredients can and do separate, which explains why you have to stir the can before you start to paint, and again every so often while painting. If you bought a can of paint and left it to sit for too long, you find yourself with some pretty incredible galaxy patterns like these ones. Ever laid eyes on a sunfish before? Unless you happen to be a seasoned diver, the chances are pretty slim. These awe-inspiring creatures, also known as mola mola, are the heaviest, boniest fish in the world, measuring up to 10 feet long and weighing more than 4,400 pounds. Besides their immense size, the first thing you'll notice about a sunfish is its unusual shape. Adult sunfish resemble enormous flattened pancakes topped by a massive dorsal fin a bit like a shark's. But you wouldn't want to chow down on these pancakes. According to Polynesian legend, catching and eating a sunfish can bring you heaps of bad juju. They have unusually short bodies and no tail fin like most fish do. Instead, sunfish have a long structure at their rear ends which points downward and looks a bit like a rudder of a boat. Adult sunfish might be about as bizarre as they come, but just wait until you get a look at the babies. As larvae, they measure just a few millimeters in length, and their bodies look nothing like their fully grown counterparts. Because sunfish larvae are so tiny, they're also extremely difficult to find, let alone identify. To protect these underwater giants, marine biologists need to understand what their larvae look like and where they occur. But finding them is like searching for a needle in a haystack. Are you the kind of person who spends way too many hours late at night watching those oddly satisfying videos on YouTube? If the answer is yes, then boy do I have a treat for you. Just check out this incredible bricklayer at work. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't know the first thing about bricklaying. And yet this dude is picking those babies up and plonking them down like he's rearranging dominoes. This undeniably addictive footage was filmed in June 2015 in Essex, England. There's no word on who the star of the clip is, but I think it's safe to say he must be some kind of cyborg Terminator rather than an actual human being. In the 1 minute and 40-second clip, he can be seen powering through his project with the determination of a machine, never missing a single beat as he places each brick perfectly in the repeating pattern. Of course, we can assume that experience on the job and muscle memory have something to do with just how speedy he is at this task. But that certainly doesn't take away from how mesmerizing it is to watch. And if that wasn't impressive enough, it's worth noting that the standard red clay brick, like the ones being used here, weighs about 5 pounds each. So shifting so many of them in such a short space of time requires some serious strength. Without risking sounding like my mother, I have to say I am slightly concerned about the state of his back after all this bricklaying. Which of these things made your jaw drop to the floor the most? Let me know in the comments below. If this video has left your brain craving more, fear not. You can go ahead and catch up on the previous episodes next. It's called binge watching. Don't forget to write in at clips@beamazed.com with any more amazing things you think I should see. And as always, thanks for watching.